Hey, this is Notser, and today we're going to be talking about a bunch of test ship changes that are coming to the game in the near future. This was a developer blog post by Wargaming. I am playing in the Tier 7 French destroyer, Vauquelin, or as I like to call it, Vauquelin. And hopefully you get the reference, Jaquelin, but it makes me smile every time. But let's talk about the test ship adjustments and my thoughts on them. I've played a lot of them, and I'll give my thoughts on, the impression that the ship left me with, and then the adjustment to that ship. So the Sommers is the first ship. This is the Tier 10 American DD, and it, of course, has 12 torpedoes, 12 gearing ranged torpedoes, 16.5 kilometers, and it has 8 127mm guns on 4 gun turrets. So it's a beast when it comes to its main battery and its torpedo systems. Where it gives up is its AA. Now, Wargaming felt like the torpedoes were too effective, so they're nerfing the reload from 108 seconds to 130 seconds. Now, I've heard people call the Sommers the American Shimakaze because of the amount of torpedoes it can dump into the water, and I tend to agree on that. But I will also argue it has absolutely no AA whatsoever. I mean, it might as well be a 0 AA rating. It is point blank, and it's not even enough for self-defense. So to suggest that its main battery and its torpedo tubes are very dominant, well, of course, because it can't defend itself from the air menace. As you can see in this game, there's 2 CVs per side. I'm a Tier 7, and they're Tier 8 CVs, by the way, so I have no hope of shooting anything down. The Sommers has no hope as well, and maybe in a clan environment where, as of right now, they haven't introduced CVs to the clan environment, the Sommers is too powerful, and I definitely agree. But that downside is such a critical downside that, honestly, I think they should compensate back. You've got 8 127mm guns. Its dual purpose should be awesome, and yet it sucks. So I think it's okay that the torpedoes were nerfed, because honestly, I don't think it's appropriate that its torpedo tubes are as dominant as... Honestly, I felt like it worked better at times than the Shimakaze, but its AA is awful. Well, similar to the Shimakaze. Honestly, the Shimakaze has better AA, so I get the main battery's good. Shimakaze's main battery's pretty damn good too, and it's one thing that is continuously annoying about the game is the lack of respect that players give for their own equipment, specifically the Japanese DDs. So I think you're kind of underselling a little bit of the guns and suggesting that the torpedoes need to be nerfed for the Sommers. But, we'll see how the changes make. The ship is not out yet, so they could still make adjustments past this change. But for all of those who have dealt with the Sommer just unrelenting torpedo, you're going to appreciate a little slower reload. The American DD Hill, the Tier 5, was sort of that slope deck that goes the full length of the ship. The reload is being nerfed from 4 seconds to 4.8, and it just felt like its reload was too competitive. It was just too high for its tier, and it's a Tier 5 ship. If it's too high for Tier 5, it's probably too high for Tier 5. Let's face it, there's a lot of low damage ships down at mid-tier. The Tier 8 mainline French DD, the Fantastic, its torpedo detection is going from 1.4 to 1.8. Now, I had a first impression on the ship, and I absolutely destroyed the enemy with those torpedoes. Remember, it has the 75-knot torpedoes that are available on only the Tier 9 and the Tier 10, and I think for the Tier 9, it's an upgradable torpedo that you need. The Tier 8 Premium, the Terrible, doesn't even have the fast torpedoes, and those torpedoes are very effective. Easily can outrange it with your concealment, and you can punish any ship that might be aggressive moving towards you. So getting a worse detection, that's not an unfair change, and keeping it within the ballpark, I can live with that. We'll see how it shakes up, but it's probably an appropriate adjustment. I don't have any disagreement there. The Tier 7 French DD, the Vauquelin, is receiving a massive amount of buffs. This is a ship that it really feels like a subpar Tier 7. I'm sure many of you have played those ships, and you don't like playing them because there's a lot of good Tier 7s that you have to play against. and that's terrifying. So the Vauquelin is going to be getting an increase in hit points on its researchable hull. It's going from 16,900 to 18,100. I am using the researchable hull with the 16,900 setup plus survivability expert. So I stand to gain about 1,200 hit points on the already 19,350 at tier 7. So it's going to gain pretty substantial amount of survivability. Plus it still has all the French quirks with the casemate, so it absorbs more damage incoming on average than your typical DD. Obviously, I think that's a good change because this was a really underpowered ship. Also, the turret traverse. The speed is going from 22.5 seconds at 180s to 18 seconds. 18 seconds is comparable to the tier 8 plus French DDs. I use the same commander for both. You do need expert marksmen to sort of compensate for the slow turret traverse, especially on Vauquelin. But if I were to, not have that, it would just be awful. So definitely in favor of this change. The torpedo speed is being increased from 57 knots to 68 knots. The torpedo detectability, though, is being nerfed in compensation. It's going from 1.2 kilometers to 1.4. Completely agree with the 1.2 to 1.4. The speed is absolutely something that I appreciate the adjustment. It kind of felt like sort of Benson level torpedoes on a platform that doesn't have smoke and has terrible concealment because of that. So I think it deserves to have the compensation of faster torpedoes. I think that should be a French trait because of the way they play. So I'm all in favor of pretty much all the changes. It needs to be a little bit more competitive. It's a really big jump up to the tier 8 from the tier 7. I mean, it's really abrupt how much better the tier 8 main line is to the tier 7. I think it's a good, healthy change. I like to see the ship, being played because it did receive basically 3 major buffs. So that version will be tested at some point in the near future. Unfortunately, I don't have my hands on that one. The Geopard, or the Goopard, the tier 6 French DD, the main battery reload is being nerfed from 4.8 seconds to 5.2. A very tiny adjustment. And when it's a very tiny adjustment like this, I always interpret it as, why would they do that? Maybe main battery was something that they were considering, but maybe it was just slightly too much damage. It's such a subtle change that I don't think most players would even notice that change. And that's the tier 6 French DD. Nothing else changed about the ship. So I think that's fair. The Jaguar, or however the French say it, this is the tier 5 French DD mainline. Its reload is also being nerfed from 6 seconds to 6.6 seconds. Based on their results in testing both the Jaguar and the Geopard, they were way outstripping every other tier with their gun reload and the way it worked. So just to rebalance the damage per minute, to me, changes like this are so subtle that the only people who would notice it are people who take stats of each and every game and they cover 100 games worth of stats. It's basically only for people like Wargaming who can follow it to the nth degree and cover every detail and know every detail. For me, it's like, okay, effectively it feels the exact same, just a slightly slower reload. Okay. I'm okay with that. That's not a big deal. The Colbert, the tier 10 French light cruiser, this small caliber behemoth, is going to be getting improved acceleration dynamics at the start of their movement. So I think they're going for something similar to the British cruisers, the British DDs, but also something like the legendary module for the Des Moines. It will obviously encourage you to sort of play with your throttle and be that really annoying French DD and cruiser where you sort of stay stationary, you move when the enemy shoots, but you have the ability to use your acceleration with speed boost, obviously, to sort of dodge shots. I expect that to be very present on the Colbert, and honestly, it's going to make it pretty frustrating to fight. It's a small ship, but if you hit this ship, it's just going to pop like a balloon. They also increased the default number of repair party consumables from 2 to 3. Don't know how often you're going to be burning, because my impressions on the super small caliber Atlanta-style tier 10s, they basically live until they take damage, and then they're dead. So there's not a lot of time in between being alive and being dead. And for the heal to be available, yeah, sure, that's cool. But similar to like the German heavy cruisers, the Rune and the Hindenburg, a lot of times you don't even get to every heal charge because you don't take that kind of damage. So I worry that that's almost a meaningless adjustment. The bigger change is, of course, the acceleration dynamics, and I'm going to have to feel it to really understand how improved my ability is to dodge. But the Colbert getting buffs, I'm sure that's disappointing to a few people who've had to deal with it. But it's still in testing, we'll see how it goes. The Yodachi, the tier 7 Japanese DD, it's honestly been in testing for a very long time. I swear it has. It is receiving torpedo reload boost, and it's going to be added to a separate slot. So this sounds like the old Shiratsuyu, where it had torpedo reload, smoke, and speed boost, I believe. But they tied it into smoke, and it basically killed all torpedo reload that the Japanese DDs ever would pull. I mean, it just... Why would I use torpedo reload versus smoke? Especially with an aircraft carrier meta? No, I'm not doing that. So they added it as a separate slot. The detectability by sea was nerfed from 6.48 to 7 kilometers, probably in compensation for the torpedo reload booster being a completely new consumable, not competing with other ones that you might have had previously. The smoke firing goes from 2.42 to 2.61. It's basically to go with the sea detectability. And then the air detectability goes from 2.78 to 3.0. So it has concealment nerfs, but it gets the benefit of torpedo reload booster for free, basically. So torpedo reload booster for free? Yes, please. I will take that every day because it gives me more options to be a incredibly impactful DD with torpedoes. And that's something that I don't get to feel that often. As someone who gets focused regularly, and a lot of DD players are probably dealing with this, every single game, again, with CVs, it's not really fun to have torpedo reload booster and not have smoke. So to have both of them, it's a win. The Japanese cruiser Yoshino, the tier 10, that is sort of the sister ship to the Azuma, just has torpedoes, it's getting an extra base repair party charge, which is great because it is a super long range ship, and that is basically what it can only do. At super long range, you do get a lot of opportunities to heal yourself. Is it what I want on the Yoshino? Yeah, the Yoshino is better than the Azuma, and it has the torpedoes that I wish the Azuma had, but it takes so much damage, and it can't get anywhere close. I honestly would have preferred maybe a concealment buff, just so I could have the option to use the 12-kilometer range torpedoes, because, it's basically impossible to use them. Your best possible concealment is 11.9, with everything equipped to it. I'm not going to use 12-kilometer range torpedoes with 100 meters of, dead zone. That's just suicidal. So I think it would have been better maybe to have better concealment over a heal charge. The Ark Royal, the future tier 6 premium British CV, received an adjustment. The Albacore torpedo bombers were replaced by the Swordfish torpedo bombers. Now, you could probably guess why they did that, because the Swordfish is a famous trait of the Ark Royal. I think a Swordfish is the reason why the Bismarck was sunk, right? So, obviously, you gotta put that. The aircraft hit points were lowered slightly, 30 hit points, and the speed was increased by 1 knot. So it's really just to match up the expectation of the player base to be flying Swordfishes, in my opinion. I'm excited to test the changes that are going to be coming, hopefully in 8.5. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to check out more of my content, you can click the most recent and the most relevant uploads. You can choose to subscribe to my channel. We do daily World of Warship videos, first impression, how-to, reviews, and news related. I have my recruit invitation on the screen. It's for North America. I stream at twitch.tv/Notser. Thank you, have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you next time.